So, how you measure conversion? So the metrics that you're going to use to measure conversion, whether your interactions with people are actually ending in value for your organisation, whether those 1.5 million followers on YouTube are actually equating to money for your business. So these, you would look at the average cost per visitor, average cost per visit, average cost per conversion, the average order value, so that's a very important one, and you can tell that from different referrals as well, so you can see how much people are spending. If you've set up all your analytics correctly, you can see how much each campaign has actually led to on different orders value. So you might have a couple of different campaigns with different types of content and different audiences, and one of them might be really, really, really successful and get loads and loads of people to your website, but when they get there, they're only buying like the cheapest thing on your website. And then you might have another one that has fewer visitors to your website, but those people are spending 10 times as much. So the order value is a very important one, and so is average revenue per visitor, and you can see that over time as well. Percentage revenue from new and returning customers. So are you getting more money from new customers or returning? Really want those returning customers to keep coming back to you. Your shopping cart start rate, how many people actually put something in their basket, how many people complete it, so once they put it in, how many do actually keep shopping. So if you see that you've got a lot of people starting, but you haven't got many people completing, then you need to look at that touch point on your customer journey and go, okay, maybe we need to send out that "have you forgotten something in your basket" email. Downloads, so you might be selling downloads for things, or just offering downloads for people of like information or music or videos or something like that. So download completion rates and form completion rate. If your target is to get lots of people to send you queries online or to get in touch, you might look at the form completion rate. So not all of these are going to be relevant for all of your types of businesses. You need to pick which ones of these are most relevant and also justify why they're the most relevant. So if part of your report, your assessment, is that you're recommending that a business sends out an automated, like, a batch cart abandonment email, then you might say that it's because of these two metrics. So it's justifying why these metrics are important and why you're using the activities to support it. So retention, this is very important. Have you managed? So your goal as digital marketeers is to get sales, but it's also to get people to feel loyal to your brand. It's really, really important to get that ongoing sort of loop of customers bringing in new customers. So in general, again, we still have the percentage of conversions from new and returning visitors. How recency of visits, so how recent people are visiting your site. How often they're visiting your website. When they've purchased, how often they purchased, and that lifetime value of customer. So looking at that overall, how much is that customer spending with you, and how much are they likely to spend with you? So I've had a couple of slides from Statista. Hands up if you've accessed Statista's database so far. Someone stick your hands up. You're going to stick your hands up. Okay, there's only like one cautious hand up. You have access to Statista. If you go to the Leeds Beckett Library website, so the way that I access it is I actually just Google Leeds Beckett Library databases, and when you do that, it gives you their A to Z list of databases, and under S Statista, and when you click on it through there, you get complete access to the whole of Statista. It's campus access, but that's the way that it kind of works. Statista's amazing. If you ever want a graph to tell you anything, you will find it on Statista. There's so much on there. They don't do the research isn't done by Statista. They will always give their sources. So when you look at the graph, it'll tell you the exact source of that data. But it just compiles them all in one place, and it's absolutely brilliant. So I just want to make sure that you know how to access that. So yeah, write that down. This is just so this is what industry professionals say are their most important metrics for measuring content marketing engagement. It's the same, we saw this last time, it's about leads generated, new returning visitors, conversion rate, likes, comments and shares, time on page, number of downloads, and this is interesting, what we haven't really mentioned, the page or scroll depth. So you can see how far people have actually looked down a page. That can be really important when you're designing your landing pages, because if people aren't scrolling down to where your call to action is, then you're not going to get that conversion. So even though this is only quite a small one, that's a very, when you're creating pages online, or if you're creating videos, and you can also see how far into a video people have watched, that's a really important metric. Okay, so now the metrics that I've gone through are only like a tiny proportion of the ones that you could look at, so it's still trying to get it into more manageable chunks and for you to focus at different times on different parts of the customer touch point, those customer touch points on their journey. What you need to do is to understand how to then use these metrics to actually create an actionable plan. It's all well and good just finding out all these numbers, but you need to do something with them. This is why, because I really like just looking at the numbers. I just find it interesting, but actually you need to take it and create a plan from it. So if you're looking at the number of visitors to owned media, for example, you will use that metric, the number of visitors to that like the website, or your social media profiles, or your email marketing list. What you'll do with those numbers is assess whether they are performing, whether they're growing. So what you always want is for it to be growing. And if it's not, why is it not growing? And then make your recommendations. And the recommendations might be actually we are growing, so what we need to keep doing is we need to keep doing the things that are working. So use your metrics to assess the performance and then make some recommendations for how you can improve your performance. So with email subscriptions, you would look at the number of people signing up to your email newsletter and then sort of decide whether the ways that you're trying to get those people to sign up are actually working. So you use those numbers to look at whether it's enough and whether you need to do more. So if you've got a pop-up that says, that appears on the website saying, sign up to our mailing list, here's 15% off, what you want to do is assess whether that's actually working. And if it's not, then understand why. Maybe it's because people get annoyed and they just leave the website entirely. But yeah, understand why not. So look into it, and then again, make some recommendations for changes. So use those numbers individually, not as one. Don't look at every metric, put them in one report, and then make a lot of. You need to nail it down to these individual areas. So yesterday we were talking about online communities. So what you might look at is the number of people joining a group that you've created. And then what you need to do is to work out whether it's working for you. So it's always about reviewing the activity that you're doing. You're spending time and money on creating. Appraise whether it's worth continuing or adapting the group. And then again, make recommendations or changes. So work out whether you need to change the structure, create more content for it, so on. When you're looking at downloads from your website, number of people rating, writing reviews, liking your content on social media, this is where what you'll do is identify, you'll use the metrics that we've talked about to identify which content is actually working. If you've created a how-to guide in a downloadable form, how many people are downloading it? When you get your reviews, look at whether positive, how many reviews are positive. What actual pieces of content delivered a positive response and why? What led to conversions and why? And then obviously reflect and decide how to proceed in your next content plan. I'm just going to have a drink and stop talking for a moment. I may struggle this afternoon with my voice. Okay, so sentiment. This one is probably one of the most time-consuming metrics that you can kind of gather, because it might involve manually kind of searching for what people are talking about. But I mean, there are tools that will help you do this. So, for example, like Hootsuite will gather every time your brand is mentioned and things like that. But then you may, depending on the tools you have access to, need to individually kind of put them into a sentiment analysis tool, which you will be doing in your seminars. And then using those tools to understand how people are talking about the brand online. And this one is much more, this is a more qualitative, well, you're gathering qualitative data, but you'll probably categorize it into positive, neutral, and negative to create a quantitative resource. But you would use that to reflect on what people think about your brand. Are the ways that people are talking about your brands, do they reflect what your brand values are? And if not, what you need to think about is, okay, is the content that we're putting out there, is our message clear enough? Is our message strong enough? Are our various different forms of digital marketing working together in a way that makes people really understand what we're about? So this is a very important one to really sort of work out whether your activities that you're doing are effective, not just in sales, but also just in your brand awareness. So benchmarking, we looked at this a bit with paid search, and this is really important because, as I said during that lecture, if you're in a more particular industry, before we even get to the industry, if you have a conversion rate of 4% on a particular campaign, a particular activity, you have no way of knowing whether that's good or bad unless you benchmark it against the industry average or the whole wider average or the industry average. So for your assessments that you're doing, you need to work out which industry the brand you've chosen is in. Yes. And then find these benchmarks As long as you credit the sort of source of where you find these benchmarks, they might be on Statista, they might be on, for example, this is on, this particular one's on Unbounce, Smart Insights, some of the other places that we've looked. What you need to do is make sure you reference them, because you will come across different benchmarks, you'll come across different data. So for your assessments, just make sure that you reference where you got that benchmark from. But yeah, let's say that you chose an education brand. When it comes to checking whether your conversion, when you come to talking about whether your what conversion rate you'll be looking for to determine whether your marketing activity was a success, you'll be looking at a 4.5% conversion rate. Whereas if you were in real estate, there's only a 2.2% conversion rate. So if you manage to achieve 2.5%, that's good. If you're in education, that's bad. So really looking at the benchmarks is very, very important for your reports, your reporting. If you do find ones that are wildly different, it might be worth commenting on it as well. So this is bounce rate. One of the things that can sort of prevent bouncing is on your website having a very clear call to action, let's say, and maybe having it near the top of the page. Because sometimes, so when I have been looking at analytics on websites, I have seen that people have spent 6 minutes on a page, clearly very engaged with the content, but it's counted as a bounce because they haven't done anything, they haven't continued on to somewhere else on the website, they haven't clicked to watch a video, or they haven't taken an action on that page. But they might have spent a while reading and absorbing it. So this is why having a clear call to action or something that they can do on that page, somewhere else for them to go on your website, is very important when it comes to this particular stat, the bounce rate. Because it isn't that useful on its own, but it's something that your stakeholders really care about. And from my experience, they always want to know what the bounce rate is because they've heard of it. So yes, making sure that there is an action that people can take on your page that isn't going to lead to them bouncing off your website to somewhere else. So yeah, but buying industry, there are different ones. They're all in the same sort of middle area. It's quite high. When you're making a website, it can be quite depressing to see that 60% of people who go to your landing pages are bouncing off. But actually, using benchmarks can really help to say, okay, well actually, we're in manufacturing, and that's pretty good. Oh wait, no, that would be bad for manufacturing. We're in marketing, so 60%, that's good. That's a good bounce rate. Better than the benchmark. So when you're reporting, these are very important to make sure people understand where your work fits in. With click-through rate, we looked at this yesterday, but on a slightly different model. So again, we've got this search click-through rates versus display ads. We talked about that yesterday, there's more to that. So this is for, this is for emails. It doesn't say that, it should do, sorry. So this is in the various open rates, click-throughs, depending on the industry. The unsubscribe rates were all very, very low. I think it's partly because, if you're not opening an email, you're probably not going to unsubscribe from it because you just go through. Lots of people have thousands and thousands of unopened emails in their inbox. But anyway, if you go back, if you're in architecture and construction and you tell your stakeholders we have an average click rate of 3% from our email, if they're not experts in digital marketing, they don't know, they think that sounds terrible, that's a complete waste of money, but actually it's pretty good for the industry. So it's just important to know the difference. And also to not get downhearted when people don't read your emails. Facebook ads, alerts, your average click-through rates. We also looked at these yesterday, but from a different model. And so this one we haven't talked about. This is Net Promoter Score, NPS. That is a loyalty and satisfaction measurement taken from asking your customers how likely they are to recommend your products or service on a scale of 0 to 10. Does anyone in the room, do you ever select 10 on that? Have you ever asked for, would you ever rate someone 10 out of 10 on their products or service? You're thinking about it? Yeah. I don't know, obviously on Grab, on taxi, I always five star. They have to do something bad not to get 5-star, right? You know it affects their livelihood. But when it's like a product or service, I tend to go for 7. I'm like, that's a nice number. But yeah, understanding these benchmarks for what people are likely to rate is again very important. It's different to sort of for restaurants or for taxis and things like that. 5-star is either 5-star or they've had a terrible service. But otherwise, in other industries, yeah, you can see in healthcare, on average, people are giving a 27% positive rating. That's over and positive. That doesn't mean they're rating it like 2.7. This is where we go into the negatives. So you might think of this as 1 and that is 10, where they sit on that scale. But that's an important one because that will help guide you into knowing whether you're going to get those customers returning to you or whether they're going to refer their friends. Okay? Well, I thought that would end up to I probably just bounced through that far too quickly. You're going to do a lot more on these tools and actually using them in your seminars. So it's one thing to kind of know what the metrics are, but what you really need is to get hands-on and to start using them. So yeah, and actually one of the things you can do that you probably will do in your seminars is kind of Google provides example data, so you can browse through all the website metrics of a shop without you having to have a shop, which is great. So hopefully you feel you have an understanding of digital marketing metrics and analysis, an insight into the traditional and digital metrics and how they are different but also work together, an overview of the types of customer value, and insights into tracking metrics across the customer lifecycle, the importance of metrics as part of a wider strategic plan, and insights into metric benchmarking against industry standards or averages. Oh, that wasn't. Let me go back. Yeah, just going to leave. Oh, we can't see it. So the examples of the traditional metrics and digital metrics were there. They're the question might have been asked before we kind of went through them. So for example, traditional sales, volume of market share, the number of stockists versus the number of places where, places, so if you're looking at this one, for example, your online availability, your metrics might be, it's just thinking about the places where your products are available and how many sort of customers you have access to on those places. Yeah, I hope that you feel that the question was answered in the following slides. Customer volume. Volume is number. So volume is the total number of customers. It's just another way of saying number, basically. Yeah, so, back. Come back, where are you? Right. So yes, the companies, they will not publish their metrics. Some of them you can see. So social media metrics, you can see how many followers a brand has on their various different social medias. You can see how many, you can take a piece of content and you can look up, and you will do this again in your seminars, you'll look at like a piece of content and you can see how many likes and comments and shares that they have had. Sometimes you can see the shares, sometimes you can't, depending on the platform. You can compare those different, so let's say you were looking at a brand's Instagram account, you might look at like a video piece, a reel that they might have done, and compare it to something they've done on TikTok, or you might compare a reel to a photo that they've done, and compare the different numbers of likes and followers and comments, not followers, and comments and engagements they get. So social media, you can look at, you can analyse these metrics, and you should. You might also be able to do a sentiment, you can also do a sentiment analysis on the comments that a brand might get on those different types of content. However, you will not obviously be able to get the metrics for referral, for like website referrals, for website visitors and conversions. So it's more about saying things like, in order to evaluate whether the work that I recommended on their website is leading to sales, I would look at these metrics. So that's what you do. So you would look at these metrics. So that's how you use them in your work. So social media, you absolutely can, and then you might say, in order to, so based on the way their current followers interact, I would recommend more video content, and then I would evaluate the success by looking at these metrics and see if they've improved. So that's how you use them in your work. Don't worry about this, you will do this in your seminars. So the tool to do sentiment analysis, you will absolutely be using it in your seminars. And hopefully find that entertaining. Looking at what people say, yes? Yes, I was going to look at
like you just said before that the brand, they didn't publish the metric, right? So how can, but I can see that many like brands have kind of the same stats, they publish to the world, so how do they develop metric where is kind of the same thing to publishing?
No, but that's what I mean. So you're not, so in your assessment, you won't be you won't know those metrics, but you can refer to how you would measure success. So you would say, I would look at the, so if I wanted to evaluate whether the work I've done, this content marketing work is successful, I would look at the number of referrals from it and see how you might say, if the purpose of the campaign is to sell a particular kind of product, you would look at that. But you don't actually have those numbers. You just use it as your recommendation to say, this is how I would measure success. I would look at that metric and I would, is that clear? Okay. So it's, I mean, it's all, it's, some of the, so the audit that you do, the audit is based, so you might audit their social media accounts and look at their actual numbers, but your recommendations and then how you would measure it is, the measuring is obviously it's hypothetical, but you need to say what tools you would use and what metrics are important. I'm really losing my voice. Maybe I could talk about this other. So if I go back to that slide,